Hello and welcome to this evening's presentation on radon. We're going to talk a little bit about our 100 Radon Test Kit Challenge, but we're going to start with some basics of radon and then we'll go into the program. So we're going to start with Sandy Hutchison from Health Canada, and he's going to give you a little bit of information on the health effects.
So what do we know? Overall, radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer. First overall amongst people who do not smoke. And why is that? And how do we know that? Well, it has been known for a very long time from studies related to underground miners into later years. They realized it was also a concern in homes. So internationally, it has been recognized as a class 1 carcinogen. And because virtually everyone is exposed to some radon, that means it happens to be right behind tobacco-related lung cancer, ahead of secondhand smoke and asbestos-related lung cancers. Again, just because it is so prevalent in our environment. Important to note that as we learn more about radon and its risk to health, things can change. So it has been a while now, but it was in 2006 that Canada decided to reduce our guideline fourfold, in fact, meaning we hope to protect more people and reduce those number of lung cancers related to radon exposure. Next slide, please. So radon itself is a risk when you combine it with a history of smoking. We're talking about a significant risk to your health. So radon at an elevated level, let's say 800, we estimate will represent a risk for 1 in 20 people at that level over the course of their lifetime. If you happen to have a history of smoking, that increases dramatically when exposed to high levels of radon to 1 in 3. And that ends up meaning there's a lot of people who have preventable cases of lung cancer. And ideally, we'd like to prevent all 3,000 of them in the country every year. And I commend you for taking a small step towards hopefully not being one of those statistics. Next slide, please. So it's natural. It's in the soil. Radon is a decay product of uranium, which then decays to radium and into radon some years later. The biggest difference is that radon is a gas, so it's much more mobile. And any home that is built in contact with the soil is a potential pathway, whether it's a large opening such as a sump pit, an old cistern, an earthen crawl space, or a wood floor in your basement, down to the smaller openings like a utility penetration, cracks, and cold joints in the concrete, if you have a concrete foundation, are all potential pathways for radon because it's pressure driven. And right now, as it's fairly cool, I imagine almost everybody is heating their home. And in one way, shape, or form or another, that heat is going to rise and escape out the top of your home and has to be replaced. And that happens from the bottom, which is the part that's in contact with the soil. So you are potentially vacuuming up or drawing in radon into your home during these months, even more so than the summer, making now an ideal time to test. Next slide, please. I think I already spilled the beans on this one. Radon is a concern virtually everywhere. Specifically any building that is in ground contact. So that isn't just your homes and the school in Eston. That would be your workplaces, the daycare, and to some extent commercial buildings as well. A survey of homes specifically found that 7% of Canadian homes are above our guideline of 200. And unfortunately, that gets dramatically higher closer to home for you. Next slide, please. I think we'll see some of the statistics here. So looking at Saskatchewan, that's close to 16% of homes had results above the guideline based on our survey. And I dug a little deeper, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but Google says that you are in the postal code of SOL. Probably you prefer S0L, because otherwise that's the best postal code in all of Saskatchewan. 18 out of 74 homes that were tested in S0L came back above the guideline, means 24%. So you can see what I mean by the closer to home, the more concerning this gets. That's 1 in every 4 homes there. And in that group, the highest level that was measured was actually 2,165. And unfortunately, you would have no idea which home out of those 74 would have that level. You might take a guess, and you might be close, but I'm willing to bet that you wouldn't actually be able to pick it out. And unfortunately, neither would the occupants, because you cannot see, smell, or taste radon. So the only way to know is to test. Next slide, please. So zoom back out to Canada. Almost all health regions had homes with high radon levels, and there were no areas in the country that were radon free. Further emphasizing, again, the key message that I have been spitting out for years is the only way to know is to test. So how are we going to test? It is pretty important. There's a couple different ways to do it, and you're going to get the right way through this 100 test kit challenge. The key is, because it's a gas and it's pressure driven, everything from the occupant's behaviors, whether it's exhaust fan usage, window opening, can impact radon levels, as well as environmental factors. I know very specifically that a strong wind out of the north reduces my radon in my home about tenfold, for example. So we're going to eliminate any potential for a false sense of security or a reason to be alarmed by taking a longer measurement and evening out some of those peaks and valleys. So the idea being that after a 91-day test, you're going to have one average exposure that's more representative of your health risk, as opposed to potentially capturing it high or low. And I see there's a couple other important notes on here about 2 homes being built side by side that can have different levels. That is completely true. I have done a lot of testing over the years. A specific example of that would be in military housing, whereby they are virtually all identical. And 2 homes side by side had a 20-fold difference. Again, the condition of the building envelope, whether it's cracks or add-ons over the years, maybe renovations, as well as the occupant lifestyle, can have a major impact on this. So it is your result, and it's good to do it so that you don't have to change your behaviors. Just do it for a longer test period so that we know what's representative of your health risk. Next slide, please. Is this still me?
That's still you. So.
Hey, sorry. It is, in some ways, we like to think it is easy to test. There will be instructions included in the kit. The basic idea being that we want to measure the radon in the air that you are breathing. So you're not trying to find the radon. Please don't stick it in a sump pit or in the darkest, coldest corner of the basement trying to find the radon. It's the air that you are specifically breathing day in and day out that represents the health risk. So a couple of general guidelines is we want it to be in an area that you are spending at least 4 hours per day on a consistent basis. Most often that would be a bedroom or a living room. So that could be in the basement, but if it is not the basement for you, it's fine to test on the main level. So After that, you're going to be looking for a location that, again, is fairly representative of the air you're breathing. So not on the floor, not tucked behind something. Keep it on the edge of a nightstand or a table in your living room, edge of a bookshelf are all ideal locations. And something else people get worried about, yes, you can touch it. Yes, you could even move it or lift it to dust. There is absolutely nothing harmful about the detector itself. There are no chemicals in there. It is not actively collecting radiation. In fact, the science behind it is quite interesting, I think, because it represents that potential to cause damage to tissue. Because an alpha track device is actually measuring the scratches or the tracks that an alpha particle leaves as it decays from the radon, thereby illustrating how much physical potential it has to cause harm to your body if it can scratch the plastic inside of this canister. And that has to be analyzed at a laboratory because you're not going to want to squint to have to find all those small scratches. And they're going to want to know which ones are characteristic of alpha particles and not just dust or something else on the film. So an alpha track device is a very accurate device and laboratory analyzed. So you'll find that we are, of course, using accredited laboratories, and this is an approved device. So you're not going to get any better. What to do once you have your result? Well, first step, congratulations. If you do have a result, you follow through with this. Now you know, right? And it is not a run out and book a hotel room kind of situation. You have been living there so far. We suggest that if you're slightly above guidelines, so 200 to 600, you fix that within 2 years. If you're above 600, try to do it a little sooner, within 1 year. Of course, the sooner the better, right? But it's not a panic kind of situation. Radon exposure is a lifetime risk, and the guideline is based on 70 years of exposure. So another couple of months is not likely to have a significant impact in your overall health. Key here, of course, is that you can do something about it, and it can be incredibly effective. So we have professionals that are trained. Once you have good data to base your decision on, that being a 91-day test that was in an occupied area of the home, and you make the decision to reduce, whether you're above or below 200, it is actually your choice. But in almost every case, a professional will be able to reduce your radon levels significantly. And I'm sure we'll hear more from Kevin about this, but the great part about the system that they're going to recommend is it doesn't necessarily matter what you start with, because they're going to deal with the source of the problem, which means they can reduce it as low as reasonably achievable. And that's the best case scenario, because there is no known safe level of radon exposure. So we do really want everybody to go as low as possible. You're not aiming for 199 is what I'm saying. That's no different than 200 at the end of the day. So the system looks fairly simple on the surface, but I assure you it's important that it be done correctly so that it is safe and effective. What you're going to note mostly is the pipe, 4 inches in diameter typically. It's going to be a thick wall pipe because you are pressurizing radioactive gas through it, and a fan that is actually designed to draw up the radon and suck it up and exhaust it outside, thereby creating a preferred pathway for the radon so that it does not come in through the other openings that you may or may not even be aware of. Much more effective than methods which people often think of ventilation or either mechanically or simply opening windows. It's just not doable in January on the prairies. Or sealing, getting on your hands and knees and trying to find every crack and opening in your building envelope, basement foundation is just not effective compared to depressurization here. So this is what we call the gold standard, and it's highly recommended. It is recommended to use a certified professional. because they will have the experience to do it safely and effectively, and the materials. I really encourage you to look into that if it does become necessary for you.
Perfect. And so we do have a national certification program. So CNRPP is our national certification program. Thanks so much, Sandy, for giving us the background information and helping us get to understand why we should be concerned about radon. And I'll hand it over to Kevin now, and he's going to talk a little bit about how you can fix it.
Sure. So you've tested your home and you find out that your radon levels are high. So next, you're wondering, what can I do? So like Sandy touched on, in most cases, a radon mitigation system can be installed. This is the most effective way to reduce the radon levels, and these systems are easy to maintain, and they can reduce the radon levels very quickly. Important thing to note that all homes can be fixed in one way or another. So the most common and effective radon mitigation system uses a method called sub-slab depressurization. So the reason radon gases and other gases as well can enter the home is due to a greater sub-slab pressure. So what this means is the air pressure at the basement floor is slightly less than the pressure beneath. And this is caused by many things. Like Sandy noted, different winds as changing the outside air pressures. That'll affect it. Indoor appliances like a bathroom fan, clothes dryer, your range hood, furnace and water heater if they're naturally vented, wood fireplace. And again, something called stack effect. So we touched on that a little bit. So stack effect is basically the movement of air in your home from the lower level to an upper level. So for example, from your basement floor up to your upper level ceiling, as the air is moving through that area. So the effect, is much greater in the winter time. As you get colder air outside your home, you get a greater stack effect. And what this does is reduce the pressure more at the basement concrete, increasing that pressure difference across the slab. So with this pressure difference, gases are simply finding any path they can to travel from the higher pressure area through any cracks or openings to the lower pressure area. So with the sub-slab depressurization system, we're getting rid of that pressure difference and slightly reversing it, and that greatly reduces the radon entry into the home. So anyways, next slide. So installation of this system usually begins with coring a 5-inch hole through the concrete slab, followed by the removal of sub-slab material to create a suction pit. Now the suction pit may vary in size depending on the sub-slab material we're finding. If it's coarse gravel, we won't need quite as large of a pit typically as if it's clay or a tighter sand material. So next, a test fan will be installed, and that will determine the fan requirement as well as your system efficiency. With all this data collected, the system will be put together and with a floor flange, we'll have a vent pipe, the radon fan, and a discharge pipe. So as kind of shown in the photos. Next slide. So it's been recently announced that a radon mitigation system installed by a radon professional will qualify for the home renovation tax credit. So this allows homeowners to claim a 10.5% tax credit on up to $20,000 of eligible home renovation expenses. So eligible expenses include the cost of labor, professional services, the building material required for radon reduction measures. So this will be retroactive from October 1st of 2020 and up to December 31st of 2022. Next slide. So our government has been changing policies to address radon. And any new home built following the National Building Code does require radon control measures. This includes gravel under the slab, well-sealed liner. Any sump pit will need to have a sealed cover. and a radon rough-in as well installed for future installation. So a little bit about the next slide, a bit of the radon rough-in. This is not an actual mitigation system. So this is simply the beginning of one. So the rough-in alone will not reduce radon levels at all. Every home will have to be tested for radon to determine if the rough-in needs to be completed with the pipe and the fan. And there's a little diagram of the radon rough-in, most importantly, the sealed cap on top and the label on it. So it's not thought that it's a different type of pipe and opened up. So that's it on the rough-in. So that's all I've got.
Thanks very much, Kevin. All right, so now that you've got a lot more information about radon, we'll talk about this program. So like I mentioned in the introduction, the 100 Radon Test Kit Challenge, we're rolling it out this year in 20 communities across Canada where there's the high potential for radon, but not necessarily a lot of testing data. Next slide, please. For you in Eston, it's going to be so we've had an online registration form up and all of you have signed yourselves up. So that's great. There's a test kit sitting reserved for you. They'll be distributed first come, first served, starting tomorrow and running through Wednesday, the 3rd of February at the Town of Eston offices. For those of you who may be joining us on the phone or who aren't here tonight, we'll be sending all this information out in an email after this meeting, possibly tomorrow. So you don't need to worry and jot it down. We'll be sending this information to you again. Now, please don't tarry. On Thursday, February 4th, if there are still detectors available, the registration will open up to all the residents of the rural municipality of Snipe Lake. And the absolute deadline to pick up a free detector would be the 12th of February, provided there are any left. So we do, at the moment, I think registration numbers are sitting around 60. We call it the 100 Radon Test Kit Challenge because we have 100 for you and they're going to sit in place in your homes for 100 days. So there are still some available. We encourage you to reach out, tell your friends and family to test their homes as well. Next slide, please. So starting from tomorrow, when you're picking up your test kit, there are basically 5 steps to this challenge. You collect your detector from the Town of Eston offices. It will look like that, like a narrow film canister. It will come in an envelope, and on the front of the envelope are some written instructions. And inside the envelope are instructions as well. Sometimes I get calls asking me and I'm like, well, that's on the instructions. And people go, oh, I didn't open the envelope yet. So there's a sheet of instructions inside the envelope as well. That said, if you have questions, we really do encourage you to reach out to us either by giving us a call or sending us an email, or also sometimes it's a question that Lisa may be able to answer as well. So once you've placed your detector following the instructions that are on the sheet inside the envelope, we do ask that if you are capable, if you have internet access, that you log on to radontestkitchallenge.ca to enter the day that you started the test and also some other information. This is what we call our START survey. Because you are testing your home as part of this program, we do need a certain amount of information from you to make sure that you get an accurate radon report and that you get a radon report. If you just make off with the test kit and never tell us when you started it and when you finished it, it's going to be a lot harder for us to get you an accurate report. So if you find that we ask you for information a lot, that's why. There's always some people slipping through the cracks of forgetting. So once you've placed your detector and you've completed the START survey online, if you don't have access to it online, I will send Lisa a PDF copy that you can do by hand on paper. Then you simply sit back and wait for 100 days and your radon test will stay in place inside your home, in the same location inside your home, not moving around your home, and for 100 days. Towards the end of that 100-day testing period, we'll send you a series of reminder emails letting you know, hey, the collection dates are coming up because you're all gonna start your test kits within the next week or two, so that they sit in place for the mandatory minimum amount of time. And then we're going to collect them all as a community. And by doing that, you don't have any costs for shipping or anything like that. And the whole community will get a better picture of what radon levels are like in the community. Also, it's important to bear in mind that we're now at the end of January, and I know our Canadian winters do drag on, but even so, we want to test during the heating period. And as you can see, that's going to take you right through till May, which is great news, but you don't want to delay starting your test kit for another month or so, because then you're going to be right into June and you won't strictly be testing for 3 months in the heating season. So we've put a little reminder there on the screen: open and place your detector by February 19th. That's the hard deadline if you want to get your Health Canada 3-month test in by the time they collect your test kits in May. Next slide, please. So once you complete the START survey, here's a picture of what it will look like when you go to that web page. You'll see our Take Action on Radon logo at the top. It'll tell you it's the 100 Radon Test Kit Challenge, the START survey. We'll be asking you for your detector serial numbers, which are written on the detectors themselves and also on the outside of your envelope. That might be a little easier to read, the way that it's written on the envelope. Certain fields in this survey are what we call required. Like I said, we really need the day that you start the test kit. We need to know where you are testing, so your address. Other fields are what we call optional. So we sort of ask you a question: would you be willing to help us by answering a couple of questions about your house? You can say no, or you can say yes. And what that's doing is really, this is a research project. This is the 3rd year that we're running this project. We started in 10 communities, then last year was 15, and this year is 20. We really want to gather more and more data about radon levels in Canada. And maybe there's going to be some factors that might help us get a better idea about who's most at risk. And so we're gathering that information about your house just to be pooled with a lot of other data to try to help us in our research. So it's completely up to you to share that data with us. It's nothing wild. It's like the type of house, various features of your house that your house might have, doors in the basement or this type of heating or whatever. So that's the START survey online. Next slide, please. And that's actually the greeting page. You'll see there's the START survey, and then there's another little blue button that says End Survey, because, surprise, at the end we ask you to do what's called the End Survey as well. Next slide, please. So inside your envelope, there is a sheet of instructions. And as Sandy touched upon earlier, the thing to bear in mind when you're placing your radon detector is that it is your lungs that are at risk of lung cancer. So you really want to be testing the air that you are breathing, you and your family members. So radon levels do tend to be higher in lower levels of the home. So they'll tend to be generally a little higher in the basement than on the ground floor, and a little higher on the ground floor than on the second floor, etc. So if you have a basement room that you use, like they say, for an average of 4 hours per day, so maybe you've got, if there's a bedroom, that's ideal down there. If there's a TV room, an office, anything like that, then test down there. That's great. If, however, you really just go down to your basement for laundry purposes or just to check the sump pump occasionally, don't test in the basement, because as Sandy says, you're not going looking for radon. You're really trying to measure your own exposure to radon. So if you don't use your basement, then simply choose a room on the ground floor where you spend quite a bit of time. That said, rooms to avoid would be the bathroom or the kitchen, simply because there's a lot of exhaust fans in those rooms. So we would suggest something more along the lines of an office, a living room, or a bedroom. Next slide, please. So here are some examples of placements. And it's worth noting that in some of the instructions, it says that the detector should be at least 3 feet off the floor. But a side table, like you see in these illustrations, a side table is perfectly good. That recommendation should say 18 inches from the floor. Again, think of the breathing space. So a side table, a desk, an end table, all of those are just perfect locations. Once again, it's fine if it gets knocked over by the cat. It's not going to hurt the cat or the detector. Maybe place it somewhere where the cat won't get at it next time. It's fine if the kids touch it. It's not going to hurt them. They're very unlikely to hurt it, but maybe put it out of reach. And just once you do choose a location, just leave it there. Sometimes people ask if they should move it around the house, but no, you really want to know where you place that detector so that when you get your report, you know what your radon level is in that location. Next slide, please. So as Sandy said earlier, this is really the most reliable, thorough radon test you can do. And these are detectors that are very reliable, and we make sure that they are reliable by doing quality assurance. Part of that quality assurance is 10 of the envelopes that are there have 2 detectors inside them. These are what we call the duplicate detectors, and they are to be placed side by side. So if you happen to receive an envelope with 2 detectors in it, just treat them like a little set, please. So when you do your start survey, there's a separate field where it says second detector serial number, only if you received one, and you can just put it in there. So you don't need to do the start survey 2 times. And we do ask you to just list both the serial numbers. And once you choose that location, be it in the basement or on the ground floor, if it's a table, just put them both there side by side, like in this very primitive illustration that we have here on the slide. Often people will be tempted to put one in the basement and then maybe one up in their bedroom, and they figure, great, I got 2 testers, I'm going to test 2 places in my home. And that's really not the purpose of these detectors. What we want to do is when they go to the laboratory, we really want to see that they're telling the same story about your radon level. So we want to make sure that they correlate. And if you place them in different locations, we won't be able to do that. So that's the purpose of the 2 detectors. And if you happen to receive them, that's what you can do with them, please. So at the end of the 100 days, you're going to be packing your 2 detectors or your 1 detector. You're going to be packing the detectors into the little foil envelope that they come with. We ask that you keep your paper envelope for reference. You'll complete the online end survey, and then you'll drop them off at the Town of Eston office during the days and hours that we specify. Next slide, please. Okay, and so once you have returned the detectors to Lisa and completed your end survey, that's it. Then you'll simply wait. And how will you receive your results? If you have an email address, you'll receive your report via email a couple of weeks later. Well, I say a couple, let's just say a few. Bear in mind that there's thousands of detectors that will be descending upon the laboratory, and they do have to ship all the way there, and then they have to process them. So if you haven't received a radon report in 4 to 6 weeks, or if you hear that all your neighbors have received their reports and you haven't, feel free, please do let us know. All sorts of things happen, reports go to spam, that type of thing. So within a few weeks, you should get a radon report. It will come to you via email, and it will have a number on it. It will not say, yes, you have radon, or no, you don't have radon, because every home has a certain level of radon, okay? Because the outdoor air has a low level of radon. So you'll look at the number on your report and you will compare it to the Health Canada's recommendations. If it's between 200 and 600, you should take action within 2 years. If it's above 600, you should take action within a year. And if it's below 200, then no action is recommended. So that's your personal report. And if you have questions, we absolutely encourage you to reach out for clarification. Then the community will also be receiving a report, and that will be next summer rolling into next fall. And we have a sample of a past community report there on the screen right now. And what this will do, we won't share your personal results with anybody. So nobody will know that, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Smith came in at, 1,000. Oh my goodness. No. What we will do is we will combine your results with everybody else's, and we'll present a summary. So as you can see, there's a little grid of houses on this community report, and the little red houses represent homes that tested above Health Canada's guideline level. Little green houses were well below the guideline level. Little yellow houses were near. So it helps you to visually see, like, oh, look at that. It also summarizes the program in that community. So it says 83 homes participated by testing during the testing period. 41% of them were found to be above Health Canada's, action level. This report is a 2-page report. If it were to be printed, the idea is it would be a 2-sided report. It's a standalone report. So anybody who picks it up, you'll all receive a copy. By the way, you'll all receive a copy via email. It has all the information on there that you need to understand what radon is, why it's a health concern, what this program was in the town, what the results of the program were, and what the various recommendations are, whether it's from finding a certified professional, testing your home for radon if you haven't already done so, to what the various recommendations are. It also tends to have a little bit of information on there about the local building code and that type of thing. So those are the reports that will come out of this program. And I think we're almost at the last slide now. So here's my information. I'm the project lead. The community liaison is Lisa. I'm the project lead. My name is Erin. I am near Montreal in Quebec. So my direct number is there on the screen, and you're absolutely welcome to call me with questions. We also have a toll-free number at Take Action on Radon, and you can get through to us that way with any questions. Also, emailing us is a great way to get in touch with us as well. So a reminder that it says drop-off locations. Is this? Yes, that's the pickup location as well. Oh, do we have that on any of these last screens, Pam?
Nope, the pickup location was a few slides back.
Right. So pickup location starting tomorrow. There we go. Perfect. Starting tomorrow and running through into February. And so I'll pass it over now to Lisa, if there's anything you would like to add about why you felt compelled to get involved and bring this project to Eston, or any little details you want to mention to people that they should bear in mind when they start popping by tomorrow, that type of thing.
I had never heard of radon until I came to Eston. I didn't really realize it was an issue. So Jody Schmidt is our CAO here at the town of Eston. And when she heard of the program, she wanted me to reach out and see if we could get our community involved. So we're excited it's happening. And I've got all the kits here ready to go. On the slide, it says we're open at 8:30. I am usually here at 8:30, but our office isn't usually open till 9, but the doors are unlocked. If you want to come before 9, I'll have everything ready for you. And just remember that we're closed on Fridays. So I know there's a couple of people, I got a text earlier that somebody wasn't able to log on. If you've talked to your friends or whatever, just remind them that there will be a link, and I will make sure everybody that was on our list gets the link, and not to panic, we'll get them informed as soon as we can. So call the office tomorrow if you guys have any questions. I don't know if I can answer them, but I can reach out to these lovely people and we'll get it figured out.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we definitely, if you have any questions that are on your mind right now, that's the next segment, answering your questions. So please feel free, like Pam had mentioned earlier, to enter them either through the chat button or the Q&A buttons that will appear on your Zoom panel if you move your mouse around. I don't know if we have any of those in yet, Pam, that you'd like to get to.
Yeah, I've got a couple here, and so I'll just give a few minutes. I also just wanted to kind of expand a little bit on something Sandy had said, but that Saskatchewan really does have, not just Eston, but Saskatchewan in a whole has some historical information and roots on radon. And so we do know that there's been testing in your area in the past. And so that was kind of one of the reasons why we were really interested in jumping in and seeing if we can't do some testing again now. But it's really around the province. So we know it's not just Eston that has high levels, but around the province. And in fact, the mitigation system that Kevin was talking about, the sub-slab depressurization system, research was done on it in northern Saskatchewan, Uranium City. There was some homes there that they knew had to be reduced. And so it's a Canadian invention. So they use it in the US to reduce the radon levels, but really it was designed here in Canada, in Ontario, but Saskatchewan really had a key part in that. So really, kudos to you guys, because you've done quite a bit of pioneering in this work, even though it's something that across Canada we need help with, or we need to be aware of. But not only with the mitigation system, but schools early on. Saskatchewan was the first province that tested all the schools for radon and dealt with reducing the radon levels. And then now they're the first province to come in with this tax credit that includes radon mitigation. So we're super excited. You guys are really doing a great job at pioneering and recognizing the importance of taking radon seriously. So that's super great. So the tests are, like Erin said, we talk about a 100-day testing period. But we want at least them to be 3 months or 91 days. So Sandy, I got a question here that maybe I'll pass to you that maybe you can answer. The question is, are there tests that are less than 90 days?
Yes, Barb, there are. You could get a result within 15 minutes, in fact, with a digital style monitor. Or within a couple days with a short-term detector, 2 to 7 days, for example. The key thing is, though, with the peaks and valleys that I described, you may or may not be getting a measurement that's representative of your health risk. So Health Canada recommends only basing your decision on a long-term test of 91 days or greater.
Perfect. Good, thanks. And I also have a question here about mitigation. So Kevin, I'm going to ask you this one. Can every house be fixed?
Yes, absolutely. Most houses can be fixed, with a pretty simple mitigation system. Others may involve more work and maybe more cost, but I know there's one we did in Eston where we had to line the whole crawl space, so it took a lot more work, but it was very successful. And again, so yes, every house can have a system of some sort put in and can be lowered to acceptable levels, for sure.
Perfect. And I don't know if you want to answer this or you want to pass it on to Erin, but one of the other questions we often get is the cost. How much does it cost to fix a house?
Okay. So for us to do a standard system in Eston would be around the $3,000 range. Like I say, the one with the crawl space was a little bit more different circumstance, but on average, about a $3,000 system would be pretty close.
Perfect. And yeah, we often talk about that. It's more the house characteristics that factor. So the radon level, whether it's super high or medium, really doesn't have an effect on the cost. It's more right. The characteristics, as you're saying, of the house. Good. And question I'll ask Sandy again. So Sandy, are there any, you talked about lung cancer as a risk for radon. Are there any other illnesses linked to radon?
Great question. Lung cancer is the only known health impact of radon exposure. But of course, I think I mentioned once already that this is a science, and there's plenty of research ongoing into other potential health impacts. But currently, lung cancer is the only recognized impact.
Great. And the just another question about the rough-in. So Kevin, I'm going to answer about if my house has a rough-in, will I need to reduce the radon levels?
Well, you'll need to test for sure. Like the rough-in, as we mentioned, it's not doing anything to prevent radon or to have radon be reduced at all. If you do test and you find that you do need a system or like a system installed, the rough-in would more than likely be used, which could also save you some cost in the job. saying that we find a lot of the rough-ins in different places or situations where they can't be used under stairways and whatnot. So we can't always guarantee that we could use the rough-in, but it's the whole, that's the point of it. And in most cases we would, but yeah, you still do need definitely to test the house first and see where you're at.
Perfect. Good. Yeah. So that's just the start of the system. It doesn't actually fix it.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, Sandy, I'm going to pass this question back to you. Are there any health benefits to being exposed to radon? I've seen people sitting in radon chambers.
Chambers or caves. In fact, I think there is one on the other side of the international border from you, which is perhaps why this question came up. I don't get it very often, to be honest. I am not aware of any peer-reviewed evidence that there is a benefit to radon. There are theories out there contrary to what we would consider the linear risk, no threshold, which is what I was saying. There's no safe level. The lower the better, because it's just a line. The lower your risk, or the lower your radon level, the lower your risk, right? There's some out there who believe there's a J-shaped curve that potentially at low levels, but I don't believe there's any peer-reviewed evidence to support that.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Sandy, for answering that. Good question. So Bob, I'm going to bring you in and just ask you a couple of questions here, which I think I've got you on, or there we go. Perfect. So you have, we know in Saskatchewan, the province, all houses that were constructed, I think it's 2011 and sooner, have the radon rough-in.
I think they started in 2005.
Okay.
I think that's when we started really, sorry. It would be after that. I'm guessing now, it might have been 2010.
Yeah.
It's in that area.
Yeah, great. And so the rough-in that we're seeing in the basements, yeah, do you have any comments, or do you want to answer any questions about where typically people would find it if they're wondering if their house has this rough-in or was built, this was part of the building code? Where are you seeing it in the houses?
Most of them are installed. They put a section of pipe underneath the concrete floor if it happens to be in a basement, and that pipe has to be perforated, and that leads down from the center of the floor to a more convenient location where they can have a standpipe come up through, which would normally be in the mechanical room. And that pipe in the mechanical room will be capped and designated as radon exhaust.
Perfect. Good. So if you're trying to figure out if your house has it, then you can go and check out in that area and find it. Good. All right. I think we are almost out of questions, unless I'll just give you a few more minutes to ask any other questions. Lisa, the last word. We really appreciate you helping us out with running this program in Eston. And so thank you so much for joining us tonight, but also for all the work you've done so far and helping us connect with the town and run the program.
Well, thanks for letting us be involved, and I look forward to seeing what our results are.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, right. Thanks so much.
Yeah, Kevin, Aaron, and Sandy, and Bob, thanks so much for joining me and taking time tonight. And thanks all of you for helping us with this program. We're super glad you also tested. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.